A working day. The topic of the next press conference: what should be the deregulation of pharmaceutical market be? Common position of MPs, experts, and civil society activists. Our guests are Ольга Bogomolets MP, Hanna Hubko MP, Chairman of the Verkhovna Rada's Foreign Affairs Committee, Olga Stefanyshyn, representative of the Foundation Patients of Ukraine, Roman Illik, Deputy Minister of Public Health of Ukraine, and Yaroslav Saenko, the Minister of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. Esteemed friends, dear colleagues, allow me to start the press conference, which is dedicated to one more extremely important step as to overcoming corruption in the sphere of public health and especially pharmaceutical sector, which is so corrupt. Today we'll be talking about draft 4484, which allows to implement revolutionary changes in the pharmaceutical market. It allows to destroy monopoly which for dozens of years were in the same hands. They had hundreds of companies that they were winning all the tenders. They had agreements on who will win at the tenders, and they would not allow other medicines to enter our market. That is why the draft 4484 is one more little step, small step to eliminate monopoly. Our first step was the law on international procurements, which allowed us to transfer only half of 4 billion for procurement via international organizations. This draft 4484 certifies on the or has the main steps which will be made, and I believe that in the Verkhovna Rada we will find the majority who will support this law, because it is important to overcome corruption. This is on medicines which this draft will have the new list of countries which now will have the chance to enter Ukrainian market. I would like to explain to those who do not understand the terms what is the difference between centralized procedure of registration from decentralized. Centralized procedure of registration of medicines means that the company should be registered in this company, and its preparations are allowed to use in this country. If the company registers its office in European community, the European community allows to use their medicines. Decentralized procedure means that the company just has an office in the European community. They can market all over the world, but the medicines are not allowed to be used in the above-mentioned countries, and the procedures will have 10 plus 7 days. Our objective is to get this draft law voted for in the parliament, and with your assistance, with the assistance of the mass media, we request you to address the MPs so that they really make this important step to eliminate the corruption which has not been condemned. There were no criminal cases open. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau did not look at the Ministry of Health as to corruption which is taking place now. I hope that this week or next week I will be ready to come with the next press conference on what is done in corruption. The corruption is now also in the regions. I would like to give the floor to the MP, Hanna Hopko.
Thank you, Ms. Olga. Dear journalist, why we invited you today? Because last week, NGOs, Ministry of Healthcare, MPs had finally approved the final version of the draft law, and we hope that this week the draft law 4484 will be submitted to the plenary room and finally will pass the parliament. After the statement of Prime Minister Groisman that the corruption in the sphere of supplies of medicines will be eliminated, immediately raised the huge resistance from the corrupt companies and officials, and we immediately felt that resistance. I believe that despite all this resistance in the healthcare committee, they MPs will manage to overcome those corrupt lobbyists who care about their personal interests, and that it will be able to pass this very important law, which will allow our patients to see those very important medicines which are much needed by our patients. As a volunteer working for the Children's Hospital, Centralized Children's Hospital in Kiev, I can confess that for many years we have been bringing necessary medicines for children, for example, from abroad, from the gray market, because those medicines are not present in Ukrainian market. That's why I wish that the government would preserve its firm position as to this law, that the parliament would act in proper way and would pass this very important law. Dear colleagues, as a person without medical education, I can ask the question why the medicines in Ukraine are of improper quality and of high prices. I believe that the problem of medicines in Ukraine had become very important, and the objective set by the Prime Minister was to make the prices lower and with a proper level of medicines represented in the market. So the suggestion is to allow the medicines, foreign medicines, to enter Ukrainian market without cumbersome registration procedure. If those medicines are properly registered at central level in developed countries. We tried to make the procedure as transparent as possible. We tried to prevent any possible application of lobbyist schemes. I would like to thank to Mr. Parubey, Speaker of the Parliament, who advised us how to re-register this draft law as soon as possible. Now we put a lot of hope on the prompt work of the healthcare committee in the parliament, and we expect that our MPs will be able to pass quickly this law through the committee and to submit it quickly for the parliamentary scrutiny to the plenary room. I think this is the last important week in the parliament, and then we will have some period of vacation. I'm pleased to invite Mr. Roman Ольга, Mr. Shafransky, Minister of Healthcare, delegated his duty to Mr. Roman.
Thank you for this opportunity to be heard, to talk on this socially sensitive topic, the topic as to prices and quality for medicines. First of all, I would like to briefly say that the volume of the market of the medicines which are sold in pharmacies, like in 2015, it was 45 billion hryvnias. And those 45 billion hryvnias are paid from the pockets of people. All this money are paid by people. But that is a very sensitive topic socially, because this is a big burden on the family budget. And we at the same time understand that Ukrainians consume less medicines and pharmaceuticals than they need, and also the Ukrainians are consuming a lot of pharmaceuticals which are not needed. And all the initiatives, the initiative of the Prime Minister of Ukraine, of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine on simplification of registration of the pharmaceutical means, and as to the simplifying the access of Ukrainians to the medical market is what we will be supporting. I would like to thank our colleagues for this work, that we managed to agree on the third draft of this law, and I believe that what is of principle in this draft, first, the medicines are to be manufactured in the countries mentioned. The medicines are to be registered in accordance to a very fixed format, and they are to be used in these countries. These are three things which united the working group, so that we have come up with the coordinated draft. At the same time, I would like to say that the Ministry of Public Health also addressed the WHO, so that they also support this legislative initiative, so that they provide the expert opinion on that. We believe that we will have a consolidated position with all the experts, NGOs, and the organizations like WHO. I am quite a new person in the ministry. I've been working for just a month, but I'm sure that this communication with the profile committee of the Verkhovna Rada, everything that makes it important deserves respect, and I'm sure that we will be able to implement this great initiative of the Prime Minister. And after the debates that we will have on Wednesday, I hope that we will all together witness in the parliament, we will see this consolidated position. And in the end, I would like to say that it is important that the new government, the new executive authorities have this priority, the national policy, the access of the population to high quality and cheaper pharmaceuticals, especially taking into account that there will be a proper control over these pharmaceuticals preserved now. I would like to invite the Executive Director of Patients of Ukraine Charity Foundation, Olga Stefanyshyn. And thank you. Today, Ukraine is a unique state where volunteers, patients, in suitcases bring medicines. 80% of Ukrainians cannot afford to buy basic medicines in pharmacies. We have such a preparation Cosmogen, which is not registered in Ukraine, and it's for children's oncology. It costs $4 in the European Union. In Ukraine, when it comes via the black market, it costs $210, and that's the difference that the patients have to pay. Many patients just pay with their lives because they cannot wait till this registered medicine gets to them. The Prime Minister Volodymyr Groysman a month ago made a statement that he wants to simplify the registration of medicines in Ukraine, and he did it a month ago. There was a draft law submitted 4484. I believe I'm already sleeping with it. When this draft law was submitted to the Verkhovna Rada, we were happy. We realized that it is not just declaring the reform, but it is designed to really implement the reform. That's the first prime minister who tried to do that, but then very untransparently the text of the draft was changed, and we see that it does not correspond to the principles of deregulation. Our expert analysis coincided with the expert opinion of Olga, Bogomolets. There are several norms. There were several norms which were making the access of patients to medicines not easier. On Thursday, we discussed a lot. On Thursday, we registered the new text of the draft. It's made transparently. We see now that everyone, all the stakeholders, came to tell you we have the consolidated position on the reform of the public health. That's the dream of the patient. That is why we initiated this briefing, so that everyone understands that the process of common reform in Ukraine is started. That is half a step to victory. Today, it's just Monday. Till the end of the week, there will be a very serious fighting. We know that the lobbyists who were trying to change this text will be trying to make something. They will probably be saying that in Europe they register some bad quality medicines, that in Japan the people cannot use the medicines which we use in Ukraine. And please be very careful. I'm happy that it's not just us, but all the branches of our authorities got here. We see now this dirty campaign against the international procurements, but I am sure that the reason will win. So I call upon the Committee on Public Health to vote for the support of the draft 84, so that it's voted for in the first reading, and in total that text is verified by the Cabinet of Ministers, Ministry of Public Health, the Verkhovna Rada, and supported by NGOs. We also have Yaroslav Yurchushyn, who represents the Reanimation Package of Reform organization. There are many of us, and I'm sure that the business associations who are here will also be continue to support this draft, and they will be expressing their public opinion, and they will all support us. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, now you can ask questions. Please mention to whom you are asking your question. Today you have heard the statement that the medicines which will be registered will appear in the pharmacies, and they won't appear immediately in the pharmacies because the pharmacies are another corrupt network. That's why we need to have a special resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers which will bring back the reference prices, which will force the pharmacies to sell those medicines with the prices at which they will arrive to Ukraine. That's why we need to establish very strict regulation of the price margins. The prices in today's pharmacies may differ 100%. We have to force the pharmacies to sell medicines at those prices at which they enter Ukraine with the lowest possible margin, and this is very important to allow patients to use those medicines. I would like to give the floor to Yaroslav Yurchushyn, representative of the Reanimation Package of Reforms. For us, it is, of course, important to get better medicines on the one hand. At the same time, the political process in Ukraine develops, and I believe that human lives should unite the government, should unite the parliament, etc. Of course, in nearest future, you will hear and read very conflicting statements in mass media. You might read that the government tries to carry out PR campaign to gain quick successes on easier things. In the parliament, MPs would quarrel who loves Ukrainians best, trying to protect them from low-quality medicines, etc. So we encourage you not to pay attention on that very nasty black PR campaign, which is already launched. I think that the quorum of the parliamentary committee would be a clear indication what MPs are really acting in favor of Ukrainians and those who are simply lobbyists. I do not think that MPs should use this topic of the health care just for PR campaigns. I think that all healthcare issues should be as transparent as possible in the country, including the government, including a parliamentary committee. Quite often we have rather sharp discussions, very strong discussions with the government, with MPs, but in this case we speak unanimously in favor of this new law. I'm ready to answer your questions. Now the questions. Dear colleagues, do you have any questions? Please represent yourself. Oleg Borisov, STB TV channel. I have a question not on this topic, and I do not know who will wish to answer it. As far as I remember, a month ago, the law on transplantation was passed. What will happen next? Who can answer? Could you please comment on this law? The regulations of the Verkhovna Rada provide that after first reading, the draft law goes to the Ministry of Healthcare, and the Ministry of Healthcare has to provide this law to all the experts. For example, there are very specific medical issues on transplantation, as transplantation is the medical area which covers a very broad number of medical areas and medical issues, and by June 20th, the Healthcare Committee has to collect the amendments from those experts. The same is true about the law on the autonomy of healthcare institutions. After having finalized collection of amendments, we will have the committee sitting devoted to discussion of those amendments, and then we will amend the law and submit it for the second reading. The questions about on the topic of this briefing. By what day the law will be passed? I'm not ready to state when the draw will be passed. Maybe in September we will submit it to the final passage to the parliament. And the question to the ministry representative: when children who are oncology patients will get medicines which they drastically need?
The situation is as following. You know that this section of work in the ministry, for that Mr. Bogomolets is responsible. That's what concerns procurement of medicines for oncology patients, children. We do have the schedule of supply of the medicines. We've submitted it to all mass media. The process is going on together with all the but with difficulties. We do feel some resistance of the system when it comes to it happening transparently, and we believe that the more there is information from mass media, the better the process will be progressing. And I would like to remind you all that Ukraine for the first time is doing it. The law has just been passed, and the movement in this direction is not very simple. There are some things which will become the basis for finalizing the draft, and the next procurements will be happening this way. That was emphasized by the Prime Minister of Ukraine, and this will be happening easier from the point of view of technical things. As to the information on specific medicines, go to the ministry and they will give you the information. It's on the website of the Ministry of Health Care. So please visit the website of the ministry. This information is open. Thank you. Then one more question. Maybe you will be able to answer. There's such a story about a little girl who died recently. She needed the transplantation of heart. It was to be made in India. One thing that India asked for was the letter of guarantee from the Ministry of Public Health, and the Ministry of Public Health did not give this letter, and the girl died. Will the Ministry of Public Health be responsible for this death? The life and the health of people is the highest value. So if there are facts that some civil servant or a person who's responsible for this work, if he did something incorrect, then we will have the investigation and will take all the measures. As to this situation, this is what is coordinated by Roman Vasilishin, and he is responsible for the commission, commission on treating people abroad, and you will get more information on that from him. As to other situations like that, we had similar situation on Thursday, but it wasn't about treating a child abroad, it was about treating a child in Okhmadit, and as initiated by the MPs, Oksana Karczynska, for example, they requested to help the child to get high-quality treatment and medicines. We mobilized the significant efforts to bring this child from Cherkasy to Okhmadit, and today the child is treated in Okhmadit in reliable hands of the experts, and has all the required medicines. It is important. Maybe certain things look like they decided very slowly, but the price for that is the price of the human life. I would like to add to the information on international procurements. We have the meetings with the Ministry of Public Health and international organizations regularly. The negative from international procurements is very important for us, and it should be minimized. I would like to say that last year the previous leadership of the Ministry of Public Health did maximum for international procurements not to take place. The list of all the needed medicines wasn't approved till May. The contracts were not signed till December. That meant that the Ministry of Public Health, understanding what will be the delay with the supplies, that it could be for half a year delay, up to half a year delay. Well, basically, that was done for people to understand that international procurement isn't something good. But this is the only way. And now we have to cut off the corruptionists from the feeder, because all the procurement should go via Prozora system. There are regions where there was not a single tender via Prozora platform. We save a lot. We save 25–30% even before cheap medicines will get to Ukraine. There is one organization which the committee, it's called Crown Agency. This organization has made two serious mistakes. First, there is a delay with getting the preparations for treating the oncology patients, children, and the second, that the medicines are to be procured from manufacturers, but this organization was buying the medicine from intermediaries, not from manufacturers. This situation is to be analyzed, and the changes are to be introduced so that this organization does not participate in procurement of the medicines via international organizations. And the process is to be prepared, the documents are to be prepared, and the Ministry of Public Health has to sign the contracts for procurement till September this year. If the contracts are not signed till September this year, then next year we will have similar situation. We will lack medicines because money, we do have money on the accounts. Thank you. This is the end of the press conference.
Шановні колеги, наступна подія рівно об 11